Hey everyone, you're here with Mark Batwell at Perfectgardens.com. So today we got a great question from Joel. He ended up getting 2 seeds from some really great flower, and he wanted to sprout them and see what he could do with them this season. He's having a few problems with the seeds, and in this video we're going to give you the ideal way to pop seeds and start them off on the right foot, as well as give a little bit of advice to Joel to help him so his plants can recover from the stress and he can get the medicine that he's looking for. Let's first talk about genetics. Seeds are one of the most enjoyable things to start from whenever growing any type of plant, in my personal opinion. Whenever the plant can start off from seed, put in its main taproot, and then go from there, I have always seen the plant grow thicker stems and more hardier plants. The issue with growing from seed, though, is you don't know if you're going to get great genetics or it's going to turn into a male plant, or the seed phenotype doesn't produce medicine as good as the dried flower you originally found it in. So my recommendation when growing from seed is to do it for the experience, especially if you're doing it for the first couple times. Don't expect to get great flower. After you begin to work from seeds for a while, I bet you'll find a lot more joy starting from seeds than from clones, just because you become familiar with the process starting from seeds. So after I've found good genetics or the seeds that I want to test out this season, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare my soil. I don't want to have heavy, clayey soil. I really want my root system to get established quickly and to grow vigorously. So I definitely would recommend going to the store and picking up a decent bag of soil. Some of the most predominant soils out there are the Fox Farm brand, Ocean Forest or Happy Frog, 707, and normally those brands are the ones that are going to be shipping your ready-to-go soil in a bag. If you do use Ocean Forest or Happy Frog, I would recommend cutting it because Ocean Forest is pretty strong. They use a spray-on synthetic fertilizer, and I would recommend not transplanting seeds or clones directly into Ocean Forest. You're going to want to take a bag of Happy Frog and a bag of Ocean Forest and mix them together, and normally that will dilute the fertilizer enough to ensure that your plants won't burn as you transplant them into the soil and begin to give them water as they're growing. The rest of the bags in most hydroponic stores are blends of cocoa, and when transplanting in cocoa, I would recommend getting some earthworm castings and put in some type of organic carbon matter, especially if you're going to be transplanting clones or seeds into cocoa. You will find a better overall growing experience when you add earthworm castings into cocoa as you're initially getting started. After I have found the blend of soil I am looking for, the next thing I would recommend adding is beneficial bacteria and fungi. The brand I personally would recommend is the raw nutrient line from NPK Industries. They have a grow and a bloom product for microbes. Other products that are really great on the marketplace is mycos and azos. Those are also beneficial bacteria and funguses. They go a long way, so you don't need a lot of it. A small bag of microbes can definitely go to transplanting a couple hundred clones or seedlings. So remember, all you're going to want to do is get a little bit of pinch of the mycos and azos or the raw microbes from NPK and just transplant them right into the soil where you're going to put your plug, which is your clone, or your seedling right into that hole. So you're not going to want to just cast the microbes into your soil and mix it in. You're literally just going to want to get a pinch of it, put it into the hole that you're going to be transplanting into, because the beneficial bacteria and funguses really play an effect when they attach themselves to the root system, because they're transferring the host in that bag. And when I say a host, that's what the bacteria and funguses are living on the hosts in your bag. When you transplant them into your soil, they're going to be transferring hosts onto your root system. So once again, you're going to want to make sure to put it right in the hole right when you're transplanting. Next thing, you're going to want to break the surface tension of your soil. You're going to want to dampen your soil down. If it is coming dry, you definitely want to get some water, not drench it to the point where it's muddy, but just to the point where you're spraying the water down, you're spraying the soil down so there is a dampness to the soil. By doing this, you will save yourself in dry pockets in your soil because, once again, water is life. And without water, your root systems will not venture into dry soil. If you have a product called Drops of Balance, it's a product I talk about all the time. It's ionic sulfated mineral products that are water soluble. I would recommend using this product at a rate of 1 ml per gallon to dampen your soil or for just watering your plants, which I'll get into in just a bit. Okay, so now let's get into the mindset of popping seeds. What do seeds need to pop? They need water and heat because they are hard seeds, and the only way they're going to pop out of that seed is if the water softens the seed and the process of cold and heat, or your soil warming up and cooling down slightly, basically begins to warp the seed so it opens up. It's kind of like having a piece of wood on the outside and for a while and it rains and before you know it, your straight piece of wood becomes warped and it bows up or down. That's the same thing with a seed. When it gets hot and cold and have moisture, your seed will begin to break open. It will take about 10 days for you to see the first leaves pop out of the soil. So don't stress out. In the first 10 days, the most important thing is transplanting that seed at a decent depth. It might be an inch, might be an inch and a half under the ground. Make sure the soil is moist. I would recommend having a humidity dome because it saves you from having to water every day, especially if you're living in a drier area or a high altitude area, because water does evaporate faster in higher environments. If you are at sea level or below sea level, you might not need to water as much, or you might not need to use a humidity dome because the water is not drying off too quickly. A lot of people at this time ask me, Mark, what lights do I need for my seeds? Your lights are not being used for photosynthesis right now. They are being used for heat. So just remember that. Your seeds don't need a crazy amount of light right now, and they really don't need more than a T5 bulb until they're about 3 inches tall. After that, you can shift from using a single bulb or to 2 bulb T5 lights, or even like a 250 watt HID. When your seed just barely pops out of the ground, it doesn't need a crazy amount of light. I've found so often that people put their plants directly under light that's way too intense, or they put it in a spot where the sun hits it because they think the sun is going to provide heat to the seed, which is correct. But where they put that, normally the intensity of the sun is just cooking your seeds, because once again, if it gets too hot in your soil environment, then bad bacteria actually begin to grow, because that's the ideal environment for bad bacteria that will cause pythium or root rot, is being in an environment where it's too damp, the water's stagnated, so it's under-oxygenated, and the water stays warm too long. The next biggest thing that I found people do is they want to start adding fertilizer immediately. And I know that's what they recommend in the back of the bottle, but that's just because they want you to buy more fertilizer. The seed actually has enough fertilizer in the seed already for about 2 weeks after it pops. So just remember that. The products that I would recommend up to this point are only beneficial bacteria and fungi, and adding trace minerals into your water, a brand I recommend called dropsofbalance.com, literally for the first month when you put the seed into the ground after it pops, and for about 2 weeks. After you transplant the seed from your tray into a larger pot or into the ground, if you do not see roots coming out of the plug, or if you're starting in soil, if you do not see roots holding the soil plug together, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. When you pull that out of the tray and the soil falls apart, it's not ready to be given fertilizer yet. And if you do really want to give it fertilizer, I would recommend at 25% of the concentration, because there is not a strong enough root system established to take up that synthetic fertilizer and process it. All you're going to do is stunt your plants by frying your root system, or providing synthetic fertilizer that ends up burning your plants, which kind of shuts down your photosynthesis. And remember, we're talking about photosynthesis, right? So when your leaves are really small, if you damage those leaves at all, your solar panels, which you only have a couple of them at this point, and they're really tiny and fragile, are not going to be working as well as if you had healthy leaves. This will always be a big deal, but it will become less significant as your plant gets bigger because the photosynthesis and the solar panels get larger, you have more of them, and so tip burn isn't going to be too big of a deal later down the road. So far, I think I've done a pretty good job at explaining what you need to do to get your seeds off on the ideal path. So let's get back over to Joel right here. So he's using some Grow Big and Tiger Bloom. I definitely would stop using those products. I would go out, get some RO water from a water company, or just buy a gallon of RO water, and I would flush the soil. If you are using Tiger Bloom or Grow Big, definitely that's what's actually studying your plants right now. Next, I would make sure that your seeds are under some type of artificial light, 18 hours on the light and 6 hours off. Because they are a little bit stressed out, I would give them also possibly a B vitamin if you don't have drops of balance. I would make sure that the soil is damp and moist, and I would give them probably another 10 days to just recover. If those seeds are not 6 inches tall, in the next 10 days to 14 days, I would probably get rid of those seeds and just start fresh, because by that time you would have been growing your seeds for about 6.5 weeks, and normally from seed after 6.5 weeks, plants will normally be about 10 inches tall, roughly, maybe 8 to 10 inches tall. So I hope this video was helpful on understanding how to start seeds and the ideal environment they need. Please like, share, and subscribe, and all my Patreon buttons are down below. Most of my cannabis videos get demonetized, so any help and assistance always allows me to keep helping all you guys out. Thanks so much, and have a great grow, everyone.